God says, listen closely, my beloved soul. Before your mind starts questioning why you stopped here, allow your heart to feel the stillness of this moment, because there are times when guidance does not come loudly, but it arrives with perfect timing, finding you in the quiet space between what you are holding on to and what you are ready to become. You did not arrive at this message accidentally. Something within you paused, even if just for a second, and that pause matters more than you realize. Life often moves quickly, pulling your attention in many directions, yet there are moments when everything slows just enough for truth to reach you. This is one of those moments. Not because something is about to be taken from you, but because something is asking to be released so you can move forward with greater ease. There has been something you have been carrying for longer than you should have. It may not be obvious on the surface, and others may not see it, but you feel its weight. It could be an expectation you placed on yourself, a responsibility you never questioned, an emotional attachment, or a version of yourself that once helped you survive but no longer helps you grow. Holding on felt necessary once. Now it feels heavy. That heaviness is not a punishment. It is information. Archangel Michael is often understood as a presence of strength combined with discernment. Strength that does not force, and discernment that does not confuse. When this message speaks of letting go, it is not asking for loss. It is asking for alignment. Alignment happens when what you carry matches who you are becoming. Anything that does not match eventually asks to be released. You may have told yourself that endurance was the same as growth, that staying meant being loyal, that holding on proved your commitment. Those beliefs once protected you. They taught you resilience. But there comes a point when resilience turns into resistance, and resistance quietly blocks the very peace you are seeking. This message is not judging that resistance. It is gently illuminating it. Notice how your body responds as you read. Often, when truth is spoken softly, the body reacts before the mind does. There may be a sense of relief, a deep breath you did not realize you were holding, or a calm awareness spreading slowly. These are not random sensations. They are signs that you are recognizing something you already knew, but had not yet named. Letting go does not mean walking away impulsively or making dramatic decisions. It means loosening your grip. It means allowing space between you and what has been draining you. Space creates perspective. Perspective creates clarity. Clarity allows you to choose rather than react. You have reached a stage where choice matters more than endurance. There were moments in your past when holding on was the right thing to do. Those moments shaped your character. But growth is not meant to freeze you in one role forever. Growth evolves. What once required strength to hold may now require courage to release. Courage is not loud. It is quiet confidence in your ability to move forward without what no longer fits. You may be realizing that some patterns repeat not because you are failing to escape them, but because you have not yet released the lesson they carry. Lessons repeat until they are integrated. Once integrated, they no longer need to stay. This message is arriving at a point where integration is possible, where understanding is mature enough to replace struggle. There is no rush here. Nothing is being demanded of you in this moment. You are simply being invited to become aware. Awareness is powerful because it changes everything without force. Once you see clearly, your choices begin to shift naturally. What once felt impossible to release starts to feel unnecessary to keep. As you remain with this message, allow yourself to ask gently, without pressure, what feels heavy that no longer needs to be carried. Do not answer immediately. Let the question sit. Answers that matter arrive slowly, with calm rather than urgency. When they do, they bring peace instead of fear. This is not the end of anything important. It is the beginning of a lighter chapter. A chapter where you move forward with less weight, clearer boundaries, and deeper trust in yourself. You are not losing your strength by letting go. You are refining it. Stay present with this understanding. Let it settle. You do not need to act yet. For now, awareness is enough. Awareness opens the door, and when the time is right, the next step will feel natural rather than forced. As this message continues, it moves deeper into understanding rather than instruction, because true release never happens through force. It happens when awareness becomes so clear that holding on no longer feels logical or necessary. You may have noticed that even when you tried to distract yourself, a certain thought, feeling, or situation kept returning to your awareness. That repetition was not meant to disturb you. It was meant to invite you into honesty with yourself. There are attachments that form quietly over time. They do not always look harmful. Sometimes they look like responsibility, loyalty, habit, or hope. You tell yourself you are doing the right thing by staying, by trying harder, by giving more time. But slowly, almost unnoticed, these attachments begin to take more than they give. Energy drains. Joy dulls. Inner peace becomes harder to access. This is often the first sign that something has served its purpose and is ready to be released. Archangel Michael is often associated with discernment, the ability to see clearly without emotional distortion. Discernment is not harsh. It does not condemn the past or judge your choices. It simply brings truth into focus so you can respond with wisdom rather than habit. This message carries that same energy. It is not telling you that you were wrong to hold on. It is telling you that you are now strong enough to let go. You may feel conflicted because part of you still remembers why you started holding on in the first place. There was meaning there once. There was value. Letting go does not erase that history. It honors it by acknowledging that growth has occurred. Growth changes needs. What once felt supportive can later feel restrictive, not because it became bad, but because you became different. Many people mistake letting go as failure. In truth, it is often the final step of a lesson fully learned. When a lesson is learned, it no longer needs to repeat. Repetition is exhausting. Completion is peaceful. This message is pointing toward completion, not loss. You may also notice fear whispering questions. What if I let go and regret it? What if nothing replaces it? What if I feel empty afterward? These questions are natural, but they come from uncertainty, not truth. Letting go does not create emptiness. It creates space. Space allows alignment. Alignment allows what fits your current self to arrive naturally. Think about moments when you felt lighter, even briefly. Often those moments happened when you stopped forcing something, when you allowed yourself to rest, when you accepted that you could not control every outcome. That lightness is your natural state when you are aligned. Holding on too tightly pulls you away from it. Release does not always happen externally. Sometimes nothing changes on the outside at first. The release happens internally, expectations soften, emotional reactions calm, the need for validation fades. These internal releases are powerful. They change how you experience the same situation, and often that internal shift is enough to alter the external outcome over time. You are being invited to trust your inner clarity. You have developed it through experience, through mistakes, through reflection. That clarity knows the difference between patience and self-neglect, between commitment and fear of change. When clarity speaks, it does not shout. It feels calm and certain, even if the decision it leads to feels unfamiliar. As you sit with this message, notice what feels heavy when you imagine carrying it forward into your future. Then notice what feels lighter when you imagine releasing it. These feelings are guidance. Guidance does not need dramatic signs. It works through awareness and sensation, through what brings ease rather than tension. You are not being rushed to act. This message is not a deadline. It is an invitation to prepare internally so that when you do take a step, it feels aligned rather than reactive. Aligned steps feel steady. They do not require constant reassurance. They feel right even when they are not easy. Let this understanding settle slowly. You do not need to explain it to anyone yet. You do not need to justify it. For now, it is enough to recognize that you are allowed to move forward lighter than before. You are allowed to choose peace without guilt. You are allowed to release what no longer supports who you are becoming. This continuation is not closing the message. It is deepening it. What comes next will feel clearer because something inside you has already begun to loosen its grip. When that happens fully, the path ahead will feel less complicated, not because life becomes simple, but because you are no longer carrying what was never meant to stay. As this message continues to unfold, it begins to touch a deeper layer of understanding, the layer where awareness turns into readiness. You may notice that something inside you already feels different from when you first began reading. That shift is subtle, but it matters. It is the moment when insight stops being an idea and starts becoming an inner truth. Inner truths do not demand action immediately. They simply change how you see things, and once your perception changes, your choices naturally follow. There is often a quiet fear attached to letting go, not because the thing you are holding is good for you, but because it has become familiar. Familiarity can feel like safety even when it no longer brings peace. Over time, familiarity can blur into routine, and routine can quietly turn into stagnation. You may have sensed this already. A feeling that something in your life has stopped growing, even though you kept giving it time, energy, and patience. This message is meeting you at that realization. You may begin to understand that holding on was never wrong. It served a purpose. It taught you endurance, compassion, responsibility, and depth. But lessons are not meant to stay forever. When a lesson stays too long, it becomes a burden instead of a teacher. Burdens exhaust you. Teachers strengthen you. Knowing the difference is wisdom, and wisdom is what is awakening in you now. There are patterns that repeat not because you are stuck, but because you are being invited to choose differently with greater awareness. Awareness changes repetition into choice. When you choose consciously, the pattern loses its power. This is why letting go feels possible now in a way it did not before. You are no longer reacting. You are recognizing. You may notice that your emotional responses have already begun to soften. Situations that once triggered anxiety, frustration, or guilt now feel less intense. This does not mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped carrying what was not yours to hold forever. Emotional detachment is not indifference. It is clarity without self-betrayal. There is also a growing understanding that peace is not something you find after everything is resolved. Peace is something you choose as you move forward, even while some questions remain unanswered. Letting go is often the choice to stop demanding certainty before taking care of yourself. It is choosing well-being over waiting for perfect conditions. You might be realizing that some of your effort was spent trying to preserve something out of fear of loss rather than love. Love allows freedom. Fear demands control. Control is exhausting. Freedom is light. This message is not asking you to abandon love. It is asking you to release fear disguised as responsibility. As this awareness deepens, you may feel moments of emotional release. Not dramatic emotion, but quiet relief. Relief comes when you stop arguing with your inner truth. When you stop convincing yourself to stay small, silent, or uncomfortable to maintain balance. True balance never requires self-sacrifice to the point of depletion. You are not being asked to justify your release to anyone. Growth does not need permission. Growth does not need approval. Growth simply happens when you allow yourself to honor what you feel without judgment. You have spent enough time questioning whether your needs were valid. They are. There is also an invitation here to trust that what leaves your life makes room for what fits better. Life does not remove without reason. It rearranges. Rearrangement feels unsettling at first because it disrupts what you knew. But once it settles, it often brings more alignment than you imagined possible. You may have noticed that imagining your future without this weight feels lighter, even if it feels unfamiliar. That lightness is important. Lightness is not avoidance. It is a signal of alignment. Alignment feels like breathing deeper without effort, like standing straighter without tension, like moving forward without constant internal resistance. This message is not urging you to act immediately. It is encouraging you to continue observing yourself with honesty and compassion. When release happens at the right time, it does not feel like loss. It feels like relief. It feels like clarity. It feels like stepping into a version of yourself that no longer needs to prove strength by suffering. As you stay with this understanding, trust that the next step will reveal itself naturally. You do not need to force it. You do not need to rush it. Awareness is already doing the work. And when awareness leads, the path ahead becomes simpler, not because life is easy, but because you are no longer carrying what was never meant to stay. As this message reaches its deepest layer, what matters now is integration rather than instruction. You have already begun to understand that letting go is not a single action, but a gradual inner shift where attachment loosens and clarity takes its place. This stage is quieter than the beginning, yet it is the most important, because it is where understanding becomes lived experience. Nothing is being taken from you. What is happening is a return to balance. You may notice that the idea of release no longer feels threatening. Earlier, it might have felt like loss or uncertainty. Now it feels more like relief waiting to happen. This change in feeling is significant. It means you are no longer arguing with your own truth. When resistance fades, peace has room to enter. Peace does not eliminate responsibility or challenge. It simply changes how much weight you carry while facing them. There is a subtle strength forming within you right now, the kind that does not need to prove itself. It is the strength that comes from self-respect, from knowing when enough is enough, from understanding that your well-being is not negotiable. This strength allows you to step back without guilt, to choose differently without explanation, and to move forward without dragging the past behind you. You might realize that what you are releasing is not only external. It could be an identity you maintained for too long, a role you played to keep harmony, or an expectation that you placed on yourself without questioning. Releasing these inner attachments changes how you experience the same world. Situations do not need to change immediately for relief to begin. Often, relief starts internally and then reshapes everything else naturally. There is wisdom now in how you relate to uncertainty. Instead of needing immediate answers, you are learning to sit with questions calmly. Calm curiosity replaces anxiety. Calm curiosity opens space for insight. Insight guides you more accurately than fear ever could. This is how discernment matures, not through urgency, but through patience and presence. You may also notice that your boundaries feel clearer. Not harder, not colder, but steadier. Steady boundaries do not require defense. They exist quietly, and because they are quiet, they are respected more easily. Respect begins internally. When you respect your limits, others respond differently, even if you never explain yourself. This stage of letting go is about trusting yourself. Trusting that you do not need to overextend to be worthy. Trusting that you do not need to carry everything to prove strength. Trusting that you are allowed to choose peace without apology. These trusts are not learned overnight. They are earned through experience, reflection, and the courage to listen inwardly. You might find yourself less reactive to things that once disturbed you. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped attaching your identity to outcomes you cannot control. Detachment here is not indifference. It is freedom. Freedom allows you to engage with life without being consumed by it. As this understanding settles, you may feel drawn toward simplicity. Simplicity in thought. Simplicity in choice. Simplicity in how you spend your energy. Simplicity is not lack. It is refinement. Refined energy flows more easily. When energy flows, life feels less heavy, even when challenges remain. Nothing about this moment requires urgency. There is no race to complete this release. Release happens naturally when readiness meets clarity. You are already in that meeting point. You do not need to force the next step. You only need to stay honest with yourself as it reveals itself. This message is completing a cycle. A cycle of holding, enduring, and learning. What comes next will feel lighter because you will be walking without unnecessary weight. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to yourself, more aware, more grounded, and more aligned than before. Stay with this calm certainty. Let it guide your choices gently. You are allowed to move forward without what no longer serves you. You are allowed to protect your peace. And as you continue, you will notice that what truly belongs in your life remains effortlessly, while everything else fades without struggle. If you're still here, this message was meant for you. Type Amen in the comments, tap like to seal this moment, and subscribe so you never miss the guidance meant for your life. Now share this with one person you care about, because someone else needs this message today just like you did.